Welcome to NFL Nexus. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most brutal paradoxes in all of professional sports, the incredibly high price of winning. And our case study? Well, it's the Chicago Bears. This is a team that masterfully rebuilt itself from the ground up, only to discover that their very own success might be the thing that forces them to tear it all down. It's a story about bold strategy, loyalty being put to the test, and the unforgiving math of the NFL's salary cap. Let's get right into it. So let me just start by asking you a question. When you think about what it takes to build a winning NFL team, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Is it, absolutely acing the draft? Or maybe finding that once-in-a-generation quarterback? What about hiring the perfect head coach? Look, all of those things are incredibly difficult, and they're absolutely crucial pieces of the puzzle. But what if I told you the single hardest part of the job comes after you've already done all of that? After you've already climbed the mountain? Yep. The hardest part is deciding who to let go. This is the central conflict for every single successful front office. See, the players who lift you from mediocrity to being a real contender, they become heroes. They become leaders in the locker room. And then they become expensive. Their success on the field earns them bigger and bigger contracts, and all of a sudden, the team you so carefully put together becomes this impossible financial puzzle. A puzzle you can't solve without making some really painful sacrifices. The very success you worked so hard for forces you to start dismantling the machine that created it. So here's the journey we're going to take today to really unpack this paradox. First, we'll start where it all began, the massive bet that general manager Ryan Poles placed on quarterback Caleb Williams. Then we'll see how that bet paid off as the Bears went from a struggling team to a playoff powerhouse. From there, we hit the main problem, the high cost of that victory. And then we're going to zoom in on two gut-wrenching decisions facing the front office, personified by tight end Cole Kmet and linebacker Tremaine Edmunds. And we'll wrap it all up by grappling with the ultimate question every successful general manager has to face eventually. All right, let's get to Act 1, the big bet. Every great team-building story has that one moment you can point to and say, that's where it all started. That's the inflection point. For these modern Chicago Bears, that moment belongs entirely to their general manager, Ryan Poles, and a huge decision he made back at the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, before we go any further, let's just make sure we're all on the same page about the role at the center of the storm, the general manager. The GM, Ryan Poles in this case, who was hired in 2022, is the master architect of the team. I want you to think of him as playing a super high-stakes game of chess. He's not just picking players, he's also juggling this complex budget called the salary cap and trying to sign star free agents. And at the end of the day, he's the one who has to make these franchise-altering and, sometimes heartbreaking choices. The buck truly stops with him. Okay, so the stage was set at the 2024 NFL Draft. The Bears, after years and years of struggling, found themselves holding the most valuable asset in all of sports, the #1 overall pick. This was a massive crossroads for them. They could have traded that pick for a king's ransom of future assets, or they could swing for the fences and draft a quarterback they believed could change absolutely everything. They chose to swing, selecting the USC phenom Caleb Williams, and in that moment, set an entirely new course for the franchise. So what gave Poles the confidence to make such a high-stakes move? This quote right here. It tells you everything you need to know about his philosophy. He learned a really important lesson during his time in the Kansas City Chiefs front office when they drafted Patrick Mahomes. He learned, in his own words, to have the openness to the unorthodox play. He's not talking about perfect textbook mechanics here. No, he's talking about those magical, off-balance throws that seem to defy the laws of physics, but end up winning you crucial football games. He saw that same game-breaking wild potential in Caleb Williams. This wasn't about finding a safe, predictable quarterback. It was about finding an artist who could fundamentally change the geometry of the field. And that brings us to Act 2, the payoff. Because, look, making the pick is one thing. Seeing it actually succeed is something else entirely. And Poles' big bet on Williams didn't just pay off. It triggered one of the most dramatic single-season turnarounds the league has seen in years. Though it definitely did not start off that way. This slide right here just perfectly illustrates the night and day difference. Williams' first year in 2024 was, let's be honest, a disaster. It just wasn't the right environment for a young quarterback to really thrive. But Ryan Poles saw this, he made a crucial change, and he hired head coach Ben Johnson. And that decision? It worked wonders, almost immediately. In year 2, 2025, everything just clicked. The team didn't just get a little better, they totally broke through, becoming a legitimate playoff contender. And this success wasn't just some vague feeling, it was real, it was concrete. As you can see from the results of that 2025 season, they weren't just competitive, they were dominant, finishing with a stellar 11-6 record. They captured the NFC North Division crown and battled their way all the way to the divisional round of the playoffs. And most importantly, Caleb Williams started to look exactly like the player polls had envisioned, delivering those flashes of Mahomes-like magic that won them games. The gamble, it seemed, had paid off in a huge way. But, and this is a big but, here's where the success story gets a little more complicated. Because hiding just beneath the surface of all that winning, a pretty concerning trend was starting to emerge. Just look at this chart. In 2025, Williams' completion percentage was only 58.1%. Now, to put that into perspective for you, the league average is hovering right around 65%, which puts him among the league's worst in that category. This tells us the offense was basically living and dying by those spectacular, high-risk, unorthodox plays. It's a thrilling way to win for sure, but it's not always sustainable. Cleaning up that down-to-down consistency became the team's next critical challenge. And that success brings us directly to the central conflict of our entire story. This is the moment the bill comes due. This is where the thrill of victory crashes head-on into the cold, hard reality of a spreadsheet. This is where a winning roster begins to collide with the unyielding ceiling of the NFL's salary cap. You can think of the cap like a super strict household budget, but for a billion-dollar company. Every single player's salary counts against it, and you are simply not allowed to go over. No exceptions. I just want you to look at this number for a second. $15 million. Just let that sink in for a moment. In the world of the NFL salary cap, that is a monumental figure. It's the kind of money that can sign a Pro Bowl caliber star, the kind of player that can fundamentally change a team's fortunes. But in this case, it represents something way more complicated. It's the key to understanding the Bears' entire dilemma. So here's the brutal truth behind that number. $15 million is the amount of financial breathing room the Bears could instantly create by cutting just one key player from that beloved 2025 playoff roster. Let me be really clear. We are not talking about trimming some fat or getting rid of an underperformer here. This is the cold calculation that forces a GM to consider parting ways with a talented, productive, fan-favorite starter simply to get under the league's spending limit. This is the harsh reality of managing success in the NFL. And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. Here's Ryan Poles himself framing the problem perfectly. He says, this is a unique situation where we have a lot of talented players, a lot of guys getting paid well, and that puts some constraints on the cap. What he's really saying is that the core strategic window in the modern NFL, those precious few years you have your star quarterback on a cheap rookie contract, is starting to close. The pressure is on to win now before Williams gets his massive second contract, which means every single dollar of cap space is absolutely critical. So let's make this abstract problem a little more real. We're going to look at this struggle through the eyes of two specific players who perfectly embody this whole dilemma. First up is tight end Cole Kmet. He's a hometown hero, a team captain, and a player whose future with the team has become the ultimate test of loyalty versus the cold, hard logic of the bottom line. So here are the facts of the Cole Kmet conundrum. He was a second-round pick back in 2020 and really grew into a team captain by 2024. He's a super valuable player, especially as a blocker in the run game. That's a contribution that doesn't always pop on the stat sheet. The thing is, his contract is pretty significant, and it runs through 2027. And to complicate things even more, you've got the emergence of a talented rookie, Colston Loveland, who actually led the team in receiving yards. And then there's the human element. Kmet is in the prime of his career. Why on earth would he be willing to give the team a hometown discount when this is his best and maybe only chance to maximize his earnings? So how does the front office even begin to navigate this? Well, this is where the real chess match starts. One of the most likely strategies is actually to offer Kmet a contract extension now. I know, that sounds totally counterintuitive, right? Why would you give more money to a player you're trying to save money on? But here's the clever part. By giving him more guaranteed money in the long run, they can structure the new deal to lower his salary cap hit for the crucial 2026 season. This gives them the immediate financial flexibility they so desperately need. It keeps the team leader in the building, for now. But, and this is a truly cold-blooded part of the whole strategy, a newly signed, more cap-friendly contract could also make him an even more attractive asset to trade in a future season. It's a loyalty test where the team is basically hedging its bets. Okay, so if the Kmet situation is a complex chess match, our second dilemma, well, it's more like a guillotine. It's the harsh, unavoidable business of the NFL, plain and simple, and it centers on linebacker Tremaine Edmunds. This timeline really puts the whole situation in stark relief. In 2022, Ryan Poles gets hired. In 2023, his very first major splash in free agency is signing linebacker Tremaine Edmunds. This was his guy, a cornerstone piece for the defense he wanted to build. Then, of course, comes the Williams pick in 2024. And now, in 2026, Poles is faced with the grim irony that cutting his very first big signing is the clearest, most direct path to solving the exact cap problems his team's success created. And this table right here, this is the whole story in black and white. Just look at that production over 3 seasons. 335 tackles, a whopping 9 interceptions from the linebacker position. He is an incredibly productive player and a leader on that defense. But then you look at that last row. That's our number from earlier. The $15 million in salary cap savings if they release him. It is a staggering figure. The brutal calculation becomes, is his on-field production and leadership worth more than the flexibility that $15 million gives you to improve the rest of the roster? And this final quote from Poles in the matter is just, it's incredibly powerful, and frankly, it's a bit somber. He acknowledges there's leadership guys or guys that were captains that mean a lot to our organization, but when you're kind of put in a corner, that's what the league's been and has been. He's not celebrating this reality, he's lamenting it. He is openly admitting that the cyclical, brutal nature of the league means you build with leaders, you win with leaders, and then the very economics of that success can force you to part ways with those same leaders. It's just the price of entry into the NFL's elite. And this all brings us to our final question, the one that every fan, every analyst, and every general manager has to wrestle with. For a team like the Bears, a team standing right on the brink of true Super Bowl contention, what matters more? Is it the loyalty you've built with the very players who got you to this point? Or is it the cold, calculated ruthlessness you might need to finally get over the top? There really is no easy answer. And that is our deep dive into the Bears' success paradox. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. If you enjoy this kind of detailed breakdown of NFL strategy, please make sure you subscribe to our channel, NFL Nexus, so you don't miss our next one. And hey, if you learned something new today, hitting that like button is a huge help to us. Now, I'm really curious to hear your take. If you were the GM, if you were faced with this impossible choice, who would you keep, Cole Kmet or Tremaine Edmunds? Let us know down in the comments below. And finally, a quick note. We create all this content out of a pure love for the game, and if you'd like to support what we do, we've created a line of football-themed coloring books that are perfect for kids, grandkids, and yeah, even adults. They're a lot of fun, and they're a fantastic way to help us keep making these explainers for you. You can find the link in the description or by just scanning the QR code on your screen right now. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.